Welcome back to Crown's Crypto Cave, and it is I, your boy, Crown, coming back with some news of new happenings, some doom and gloom, some moon and hopium. Nope, guess what? We're going sideways. It's a snail fucking market, baby. So get on all fours and start crawling around. And we actually do have a few very interesting things coming up, so this will be a bit of a preparation for the week and rest of the month to come. But with that in mind, let's go into the CrownChain application, which we found at app.crownchain.net. What do we see over here? We do see most of the same things, actually. The only thing that was of great interest over the last week or so was the open interest actually shooting up for the first time to about 6 billion in about the last month or so, which was rather interesting to put it nonetheless. But still, I want to see that shoot up alongside a break of the daily range. What's the daily range? Hasn't been changing essentially. 41,000 bucks to the upside versus about 32,000 bucks to the downside. Fear and greed index actually did come down rather significantly once again as well. I think it was like 26 or 27 yesterday. Now oscillating right around about 17, which does imply that the market is rather fearful, as you would expect after having a 50% drop and not much of a bounce thus far. Put that in context. Anyways, top 10 best coins, top 10 worst coins. It looks like Bitcoin SV actually the only winner of the last 24 hours. On the other side, though, even the stable coins actually given up a very small amount right there, very small fraction. But overall, looks like everyone kind of got hit on the face as the Bitcoin conference zooms on, which again, I'm having massive FOMO with. Like, it actually looks really, really cool. Anyways, looking at the market data tab over here, is there anything of particular interest that we have right now? Could we be looking at a bit of a higher low on the line chart? Perhaps yes, but I really want to be putting significant interest on the funny rates right here. And what do you know? FTX and BitMEX and even a little bit on OKX showing a slightly negative rate. That does still give me a little bit of a bias towards short-term upside within the context of this range. Again, alongside the fear and greed index being rather low and Bitcoin just grinding out the essentially a macro area after about a 50% drop down. I'm going to lean more on the side of a try to the upside first before this is all said and done. I would feel rather confident saying something along the lines of, I do believe Bitcoin's going to give a try towards the top side of the range before, if it is going to happen, break the bottom side of the range in this case. But as we've been speaking about over this past week or two, there are several things to be very cognizant of if and when Bitcoin does make its way into the mid to deep $40,000 territory. With that in mind, I do want to now get on to some actual news. I mean, this is how fucking slow this market is right now. Or actually, before we get into that, let's look at the put call market over here, because there's something very, very compelling with this. Okay, finally, we do see that open interest on the $35,000 and $40,000 strikes, respectively, are massively overshadowing everything else. It's gotten above the pivot where I kind of look at it as, I guess, more or less significant. I'd say that's about 250 to 300. We're seeing this actually print all the way up well above 300 right now, which is good, at least for giving us a bit of a bias here. And looking at our expirations, we can see that has been played on the June regulars. I'd feel rather confident saying that we very likely do see a range between 40,000 and 35,000 bucks throughout the rest of the month. Can that come with closes above and below throughout that time? Yes, absolutely it can. But my point is, on June 25th, end of month, we very likely do see Bitcoin settle somewhere within the midst of this range right here, is what I'd feel quite confident in saying. Now, at some point, as volatility does come down here, which we have been looking at on the BBW piece, slowly grinding its way down. I think it's somewhere around 20 percentile right now, and we'll definitely check it out today. At some point, this actually will turn into a pretty damn good position, to be fair, because that is a daily range, more or less. I mean, it's a little bit more to the downside, I suppose. But this would more or less get it. And, at some point, I would be looking for this to get rolled on over into another expiration and probably play the long straddle. And it actually will work out for whoever buys that. But as of right now, we don't see that just yet. And so, I don't believe that we've seen the volatility signature that we'd really want to be seeing force that to be super fucking profitable, at least this month as it is right now. Perhaps coming into whatever month is after June, July. Yeah, that's it. Then I'd be looking at, I'd be looking at a likely resolution. But for right now, snail market is the name of the game. Again, on a monthly closing basis. I'm not talking about on a daily. Obviously, we can get closed above and below on a daily. It's all about the end of the month here if we're looking at something like this. Anyways, into some news, some actual very interesting news right here. El Salvador, an actual fucking country, has put Bitcoin on its balance sheet. So not only do you have, people, your everyday person adopting Bitcoin, then going on to institutions like, I don't know, MicroStrategy and several others, Tesla even as well, even though people seem to not be as big of a fan right now. And now a country is actually opened up the doors as well. So, this is very significant. In fact, this is perhaps the most compelling information or piece of information that I've seen about this space. in a very long time now. This is really, 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 really cool stuff, actually. And because, you know, it typically just takes the first domino to fall in order to start a bit of a chain reaction, all eyes are going to be now on El Salvador to see how it works out for them. And I imagine, well, actually, I don't know. I'd imagine it probably goes fine, but who knows, man? Maybe we have another 50% crash and they're like, fuck this. I'm out. I'm out, baby. Let's get the hell out of this piece of fucking Ponzi. But you know, in a more sincere tone, if El Salvador can just prove to be, you know, not even successful, just, you know, fine with this, then that opens up the doors for other countries that might be looking to expand, you know, their treasury assets or, you know, just add assets to their balance sheet in the same sort of way. So very, very cool stuff. And actually something that I think deserves a lot of respect, or at least it's not that it deserves a lot of respect. It just deserves a lot of, you know, attention. I mean, this is a big deal. That's actually really fucking good. Another piece of news. This is what I do not like over here. Fuck Elon, we're not selling, says Mr. Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, so the Bitcoin conference going on right now. Look, I want to be on the record as saying this. In the Bitcoin space, in the crypto space, just in general, I met some of the best people, the best fucking people in the world that I know. I've also met some of the least inspiring people, we'll say, put it diplomatically, I suppose. And you know, actually made even a tweet about this as well, and the responses were pretty damn revealing. Now, 90% of people were, you know, pretty reasonable with it, even if they disagreed with what I said. They were reasonable people about it, which I totally respect. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, obviously, just as this person is here. You know, he's entitled to his opinion. But what was very crazy, or what was very concerning, was what I feared the most, which is tribalism. Which, you know, people would pile on, being like, "Yeah, fuck Elon. Yeah, I'm on Team Kaiser." It's like, no. Oh my God, this is the worst. This is the worst thing that can possibly happen, because that is how fucking cults start. We are going into tribalism right now. We do not want that, or at least I do not want that. But then again, I realize now, you know, looking at the backdrop of this picture right here, definitely a cult. Definitely in a cult. So I suppose I'm a card-carrying cult member. You know, again, I do think that Bitcoin is a very interesting asset. I think that it has its place in the world. I think that it's incredibly amazing. Do I think that it fixes everything? Fuck no. This is not like God. What? I don't even know what a perfect allegory would be. But my point is, man, like, you know, this sort of tribalistic sort of behavior is not where, you know, healthy assets go. You want the asset and its merits to speak for itself. You don't need to fucking, you know, mudsling at other people in order to, in order to make you feel good about your own investments. You should feel so confident with your investment that it does not matter what other people say, or at least if other people say something, you feel confident enough to respond with your own actions, rather than blank and empty words that mean absolutely very little. So this sort of stuff right here, man, I really hope that this space doesn't go in this way, because this quite literally does look like a scene out of a BitConnect conference. So yeah, fair enough. And again, I understand that some people are just going to completely disagree with me on this. That's fine, man. That's completely fine. I totally get it. You know, you're entitled to your opinion. Understand where I'm coming from. I'm not saying that I'm Team Elon or Team Kaiser or whatever, man. That's ridiculous. That's the exact thing that I'm criticizing. What I'm criticizing is the fucking tribalism. And if your response to something like this is, yeah, well, Elon did this, it's like, oh, please, for the love of fucking God, oh my Lord, just think about that deeply for a second. Anyways, I'm getting way off tangents here. Let's talk about actual price action analysis itself. Okay, so we are coming into the bi-weekly close later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We got 18 hours, 37 minutes, and 9 seconds to go until that time, and something rather concerning that has pretty much been perfect within the history of Bitcoin is looming on, is on the verge of happening right here. What would that be? That would be the bi-weekly MACD crossing to the downside. That will inevitably happen with Bitcoin closing below 42,000, about $200 by end of day today, 8 p.m. again, Eastern Standard Time. With that in mind, and by the way, you can get this indicator for free. It's on the TradingView public library. Just type in caretaker reverse MACD. Caretaker's got everything reversed, so he's reversed my whole fucking life, man. He's great. Absolutely love the guy, and several is, the vast majority of his indicators are just available there for anyone to take whenever they want. Anyways, so yes, that is bi-weekly MACD. Why is this important? Well, let me not give you my stupid opinion on it. Let me just give you the hard and straight facts, and you can make a decision for yourself. Again, assuming that this does get confirmed, but we have seen several crosses both to the upside and the downside of this in the past, and they all, at least for what I've seen, have led on to more or less macro major trending moves. Last time we saw across the upside was actually in May 2020, and that was essentially precipitating this move from about 9,000 to, well, ultimately about 62,000 bucks the upside. When was the time that we had a cross to the downside before that? Right around here. So pay special attention to the downside across because, well, that's what we're, in danger of doing right now. And that was on 20th of October in the year of 2019. And guess what? That was in a very similar posture now, wasn't it? Bitcoin bounces off the 20 simple on this time frame, and it bounces just a little bit above the 9 exponential average after a bit of a 3-month-long reversal phase over here, to be fair. And what happens after that? Bitcoin drops down almost immediately over the next following 2 weeks, about 36%, failed rally, and then coronavirus dump time. So I don't know if you just kind of look at this as a bit of a, bit of a regression that you should just kind of draw to the mean right here and just cut it right in the middle, or if this is to be expected as well. I don't necessarily know that you can say the exact same thing as that, but overall, let's just go back a couple more examples. Again, we have another one to the upside right here. That was quite literally from about 4,000 to 14,000 bucks, but that was the upside, not the downside. Anyways, the last time that we saw a downside cross before that was right around here. What do you fucking know? Bitcoin bases off the 20 simple, bounces up into the 9 exponential average right here, rejects, and bases out about 55% lower over time. Almost immediately, it looks like it drops down what? It drops down about 46% actually, right back down to those lows, to be fair, however. Anyways, and again, this was within a bull trappy formation here too. I mean, same thing over here. Bitcoin reverses. Here's your bull trap, boom, down. Anyways, do we have another example on top of this? I believe we do. Yes, we do. Going all the way back to 2014 here as well. We do see Bitcoin, once again, basing off the 20 simple right here. Boom, bounces up. 9 exponential average does reject. And we come down as it crosses down as well. And let's just see how much was this initial move, about 50%. And then ultimately, that led into the next bull trap over here. And that one got an immediate 6% downside move and then 76 to 78% continuation after that. Not bad. Anyways, do we have another example after that? Maybe if we go to BLX index, let's see. Not really. We do have an example to the upside right here, but that was in 2012 and well, that one already speaks for itself. Anyways, my point is that right now we are doing something relatively similar to that. In fact, incredibly similar to that right now, where Bitcoin is based off the 20 simple. Yes, we do see it's crossing it. It's hinting across the downside. Technically not confirmed just yet, but you can imagine that any sort of a closure below 42.2 tonight, or just anywhere below 40,000 bucks, will do that. So what does that essentially imply? It does imply that the next rally up that we do see into the mid or deeper $40,000 territory, very likely, strong probability of getting rejected. I mean, historically speaking, that has never failed. Now, to be fair, how many iterations do we have? 1, 2, 3, right? So 3 does make a trend, to be fair, and realistically, that is about as good as we can do with this amount of history. But at the same time, do I put a lot of weight on that? Yes, I do put a lot of weight on that, mostly because, well, until that trend is broken, that trend is typically your friend. In this case right here, where's the 9 exponential average coming in around? That would be about mid $40,000 territory, actually right around about 44,000 bucks, you can see. And we have seen, price action trade a little bit above it, and that's completely fine as well. But ultimately, if Bitcoin does close below 42,200 by end of night tonight, or just even 40,000 bucks would do it for me as well. Then, well, I would be quite skeptical of any sort of rallies into the mid to deep $40,000 territory. That would also be, of course, if we bring up our drawing tools over here, and let me just make sure that my microphone's working. It is, and we're recording too. Hey, that's really good. We're off to a really great start right now. If we were to take a bearish tracement on this as well, what do you fucking know? We do see the 0.5 and the 618 coming in right around the deep $40,000 territory, between about 47 and 50 or 51,000 bucks. And that is your proverbial bull trap after an actual reversal. Just, theoretically speaking, that's typically where you do get it. In a much more weaker market, you'll typically get it around like the 382. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily call this market weak after going fucking 500% to the upside from 10,000 bucks, right? But looking at this right here, I would say that that's rather concerning. So this will very likely take time. And to be fair, all of the past iterations that we have seen on this, and I'll give my opinion on this in a second here, but I'll just give you the hard and straight facts first. All the iterations that we've seen in the past with all those crosses to the downside, while the next rally did get rejected, it didn't just come back down to the prior lows. It made new lows. It has always made new lows, actually. As you can see right here on this one, makes new lows right there, and then ultimately further lows. But I do think that this one you could say is maybe a little more on an outlier situation. This one over here, a lot more conclusive, gets it right there. Boom, down, new lows, especially on a closing basis, not good. Same thing over here, as it does come down, includes on new lows and continuation over time. So with all of that in mind, would I blindly say that if Bitcoin does confirm the signal, the next rally does fail and does push to lower lows? Personally speaking, I actually still do think that you go off a structure here. At least I would still go off a structure right here, mostly because it's pretty fucking simple and it's pretty fucking easy. Look, as long as Bitcoin is above this level, this last higher low on a weekly schedule at about 32,300, I do look at that as still, technically speaking, a weekly uptrend. Now, with that in mind, if Bitcoin pops up here, rejects somewhere anywhere below 50,000 bucks, what is that going to be? We're going to have our first lower high. I'm sure that someone's going to say, but Crown, isn't this a lower high over here? No, this is just one massive consolidation right here. If you're looking at a weekly, if you're looking at like a 3-day or any time frame below that, then yes, you would have a series of, you're already in a downtrend. I mean, the only time frames that are still like safe, I suppose, is weekly and up. But as it stands right now, that would be your lower high watch. Remember when Bitcoin was in this distributed phase over here a couple months ago? Well, once Bitcoin took out this level right here, what do we say? This is now risk on. We look for a lower high. And if you get a lower high, then we're going to look for a markdown. And what do you fucking know? We got a lower high right around the 618 right here as well. Just by the way, let's see. Yeah, right around there, actually. As you can see, 618 right in line with that lower high. So that would be my concern coming up as soon as, perhaps, the rest of this month, I suppose. With all of that in mind, if we did get a lower high right here, I would be looking at the very least for another move back down somewhere around the 55 or the low structure of this, which we could say is about 35,000 bucks. I understand, you can get wicks below and everything too. But at that point, you really have to start looking at this as pressure on, in my opinion, and any sort of a weekly close below about 32,300 or a daily, I'd say a daily below about 31,000 bucks. Yeah, wherever this level is right here. Yeah, just below 31,000 bucks. Then yes, have to be looking further south on price action. Until that happens though, I actually would still give Bitcoin the benefit of the doubt here just because, it's fucking Bitcoin and Bitcoin does some crazy shit. But ultimately, as it stands right now, I don't, if that gets confirmed, which again, it is still not confirmed, it will be difficult to, at the very least, not look for the next rally back up around this level, anywhere around that level to get rejected at the very least. And at very best, at least in my opinion, for the BULAs, Bitcoin would go sideways here for, probably the rest of summer, something like that. Do I think that that's what's going to happen? I actually do think that that's what's going to happen. Why? Because I'm a Bitcoin fucking moon boy. That's it. I joined the fucking cult, baby. I'm in. Anyways, look at the monthly as well. I should quickly denote this and harken back to this. Keep in mind, the Bitcoin monthly accumulation distribution indicator actually did get a more positive slope compared to what we saw in May coming into June. So to me, this also does make me a little bit more on the side of, Bitcoin very likely does pick itself up by the bootstraps here. Can that come with wicks to the downside again? Yeah, it could, especially on a monthly schedule here. But ultimately, I'd still give the monthly, a bit of an excuse, if anything. All the things do point towards, at the very best, consolidation, at the very worst, potential move down to the 20 simple in this case, which would be about 21,000 bucks. Okay, so with all of that in mind, let's talk about these short-term timeframes now, and let's get through this. And let's actually go quickly. Let's actually start this off with CME chart, as this one's going to be opening up a little bit later today. And I do think that the CME chart is the only one. Like, everyone's been trying to put a fucking triangle on this goddamn price action right here for like the last 2 weeks. Look, actually, it technically was not even a potential triangle until literally close on Friday. This is how crazy this market is. Here, here's what it would be if this is going to be a triangle. Now, to be fair, this would be a symmetrical triangle, but this symmetrical triangle coming off of an actual downtrend. So technically speaking, the probabilities would be a little bit more in favor of continuation on these formations. But at the end of the day, I would just go by support and resistance in this case. And in fact, I would even chart the topside resistance like this. I would chart it more so like this. In fact, move this one down just a smidgen there. And this is essentially what you want to see if you are bullish, I suppose, as you are getting a series of higher lows right here. For all the people who hate CMEs because it's the mean bankers who are running it, well, this is probably your best hope right now, to be quite honest with you. So even for the people who are trying to like fit a fucking symmetrical triangle on the top side, I would even strongly disagree with that. It's not going to work out like that all that well. Here's your real pivot right here, above 41,000 bucks. Yes, I think that you're going to get some rips into the deeper $40,000 territory, very, very likely. But as we said, that will be pressure on, assuming that the prior condition is met by the end of the night tonight. In fact. So with all of that in mind, we are looking for resolution on this relatively soon, I would say, but to the upside, I would not call resolution until we're above about 41,000 bucks on a wick basis or a closing basis above about 40,500 right here. And we could make a measure move on that, to be fair. This would be essentially an ascending triangle right here. And where would that be pointed up towards? Oh, you already fucking know. You already fucking know now, don't you? Right around about 46,000 bucks. Remember, if we do pull back to this chart over here, that was pretty much right in line with where we would be looking for a proverbial bull trap if that were to happen. Again, not necessarily completely destined to overall happen, but it's risk on as long as Bitcoin's below about 50,000 bucks, in my opinion. As it stands right here, to the downside, where would I be looking at continuation to the downside? A little bit more tricky, actually. But in this case right here, I would be looking at a 12-hour delta closure below about 35,000 bucks would be my condition for continuation. And while technically speaking, I should not do this, I do think it actually would work out. We could make a measure move to the downside, and guess where it'd be pointed around towards? It'd actually be, whoops, lower that a little bit more around where the resolution would actually be. That would be somewhere around about 31 to 31,500-ish region. So it actually wouldn't even imply new, it wouldn't necessarily get me on like the trending side of a new lower low move. In fact, it would still look something like this to myself, at least for the time being. Again, as long as the weekly and daily levels do hold, although it would be right around there, but something like this. And again, if I'm giving my stupid opinion on this market, I do think that Bitcoin more or less tries, like over the next, I don't know, 3-4 months to at least another month, perhaps as much as about 3 months, doing something like this perhaps. And if you see something like that, that would be generally good. Actually, I would be looking at that as very clear and obvious signs of of accumulation, and probably Bitcoin does march back onto the upside over time. But what it looks like to me, especially considering the bi-weekly MACD cross, assuming that does get confirmed later tonight, again, that is a major assumption right now, is that we're essentially playing out what would appear to be like a mini bear market within the context of a macro bull market. The reason why I say it's still a macro bull market is because the weekly trend has not been broken just yet. Is it fucking close? Yeah, absolutely. Is it is it broken though? No, it is not. And I do not front run trend reversals, especially on higher term timeframes like this, until proven otherwise, because we've seen these things continue on after looking like absolute shit for sometimes even years at a time. On top of that, people are calling this a head and shoulders formation right here as well. Extremely unlikely. First off, the volume signature would not be correct. And second off, if we were to take a measure move on this, I'm just curious what it would show. Just does it show anything super ridiculous? I mean, it would be showing a move back down to about $7,000 bucks. So, I suppose if you're looking at something like that, this market's fucking over if that happens. This quite literally is a Ponzi if that fucking happens, man. At least in my opinion. But again, I'm not necessarily of that opinion. I do think that there actually is still hope here for the BULAs, and it does seem to me that right now the more popular thing to be is actually bearish. Now, is there a lot of good reason to be bearish? Sure, yeah. We do still have lower highs. Even on the daily right here, we do have one higher low, however, on CME. So it is a consolidation, obviously. And realistically, I don't think that it's wise to call this one before it's like actually resolved. Personally speaking, I do think that we'll try to the upside first before actually maybe attempting a real downside break. But looking at the shorter term timeframes over here on spot price action, it certainly does not look too damn good right here, to be fair. We have we have all major movement averages switching around into a bearish posture right now on the daily. We did have a little bit of hidden bearish divergence on the last high, but I would argue that that's mostly played out. If you want to see for another wick move to the downside, about 34,500 is where we'd be looking towards. But when I go down to the lower term timeframes over here, I don't think so. I stick with what I've been saying yesterday. Look, and yesterday I was actually a little bit off on this area right here too. I think I was saying something around like 36,000 bucks. Realistically, we are still holding the higher lows as far as this formation goes right here. Let me just get rid of this one to the upside because I just don't think that it's relevant. But more importantly right now, I do think that Bitcoin is going to give another try to the upside short term here. If we do go look at our momentum oscillators on this chart, we do see that 4-hour will switch around to an upside posture with any sort of a closure above 35,630. If we go to 3-hour, it's already doing it right now. 35,100 is the magical number. Bi-hourly is 35.5 magical number, and hourly is actually all the way up there at 35.5 as well. And we are contracting on this rather significantly here on the short term time frame. So this is looking for a short-term move today. So at the end of the day, I do think that short-term, regardless of whether bullish or bearish, Bitcoin probably finds its way back up somewhere around 37 or 37.5. In fact, looking at the daily right here, yeah, I do think that 37 or what is this, 36.5? What the fuck, 36.5? That's too low, man. That's too low. What about yesterday's open? Yeah, somewhere around $37,000. I do think that Bitcoin will test up there before this day is over, and then hold your breath, because now we have, if you are going to play the short-term timeframes as well, a higher low structure and aka somewhat bullish, if you will, then you don't want to see this level taken out right here. About 35,500-ish region would be the magical number. So that I was wrong about yesterday. This is also why I do not like trading over the weekends. I do believe that your overall edge as a trader, if you're using technical analysis, is usually diminished. I know that some people disagree with that as well, but just at least for the edges that I use, I don't think that they work as well all over the weekend for what it's worth. Just after looking at this for the last like 3-4 years now, so take that as you will. Again, if you are trading over the weekend, I'm not saying anything bad towards you. Just hey, more power to you. Actually, I mean, it's impressive. I respect that, but for myself, not so much, man. Not so much. Anyways, here's what I would say about the short-term timeframes. We do have yet again another pivot to the short-term timeframe upside. That'd be right around about here, right around this last little rejection from yesterday's 37,600-ish level. Any sort of a wick higher than the high side of this of this rejection, which would be 37,927, spot 93 on stamp, or a closing higher high above this, which again is about 37.5. Let's go to a 2 hour and see if this holds up. Yep, it would. Then I would be looking for Bitcoin to actually pop all the way up. In fact, at that point, I really would be looking for Bitcoin to mount a rally towards the $40,000 level, and perhaps even gun for that $41,000 or $42,000 pivot that we spoke about earlier. So I do still think that Bulaw's hopes are alive today, and realistically, seeing a move like that we had yesterday over the weekend, to me is typically a trappy move as far as like the real trading week goes. So a lot of the time you'll see this where a move will happen over the weekend, and then it'll just get completely retraced as as CME opens back up and the professional traders get back in into their pole positions over the weekend. A lot less people are trading, typically speaking, so it's a lot easier for lesser well endowed, we'll say, market movers to essentially run with price action and run some stops. And I believe that that's what we saw yesterday, to be quite honest with you, until Bitcoin really breaks below this level right here. I probably wouldn't even be looking for any legitimate short-term downside. I'm not saying that it can't break down, but with what we see on the bi-weekly MACD, I do suspect that we probably give a bit of a bull trap, assuming that gets confirmed first before trying some actual downside. And I think that it should be warranted to say that most people are actually rather bearish on Bitcoin. At least that's what the fear and greed index would imply right here. And if you peruse around crypto Twitter, I mean, you'll kind of see the same thing as well. So I do look at that. I wouldn't say necessarily as a counter trend, as a counter signal, because I fucking hate thinking in that way, because it's like you get into the mindset of the tribes again. It's like everyone's bearish, so I'm bullish. It's like, okay, well, how do you quantify that, right? The fear and greed index is the closest thing that we have. And that would be more on the fearful side, to be fair. But if you actually looked into how that calculated, it's not the it's not the most streamlined way, to be fair. Anyways, okay, cool. So we've gotten mostly through what I want to say on Bitcoin. Actually, let's look at the medium-term time frames right here. 12-hour coming down. Ooh, coming down aggressively there too. That's not good. Daily is also looking like it wants to cross the downside. $37,000 is the magical number. 2-day is what? Oh, motherfucker, 35.5, and 3-day is 37. Holy shit. Yeah, if those start to cross down again, then it's going to be hard not to look for a move back down to about $33,000, maybe get another wick down around there. Would I be calling a full-on breakdown, full-on melt just yet? No, I'd probably be looking for another bounce as well, but this would start to look really fucking nasty with even just a few more wicks accumulated between about 32 and 33. I would still be looking for another, anemic bounce, but man, that would be fucking devastating. At least, at least for this formation going on right here. All right, should we check out some altcoins right now? I think we should, but first things first, I do want to just see if I missed anything over here. Yeah, okay. I do want to reiterate just the 3 major things that I'm looking for on a Bitcoin major reversal as well, of which we have none of them. And this has also been kind of keeping us safe, looking, not getting carried away by exuberant irrationality to either side in this case. What I would be looking at right here is the hash ribbon signal has not just not given us a blue buy signal, which is the first and foremost important criteria for us to look for, at the very least, a major low, maybe not even a macro low, but a major low. We don't even have the possibility to get it right now, because it is in a bearish posture right there. It's in the recovery phase, is how this indicator states it. Anyways, until we get that blue buy signal, as we see right here, 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 there's no talks of a major low being put in right now, at all, at fucking all. When it happens, I do think that'll happen rather fast, but but I do think that that needs to be, you know, very much denoted. As far as trend goes, I need to see higher lows and higher highs. Do we have that right now? No, we could maybe be trying to put in a higher low right here. It doesn't really look like it right now, but we certainly do not have we certainly do not have higher highs. That is for fucking certain. And until Bitcoin gets above about 39,300 or so, or even just back around this region right here, that will not be holding true. So that's another big point of consideration as well. And then the last one, perhaps the most important one, would be the BBWP, of which we have actually solidified or satisfied 3 of the 4 conditions that I'm looking for here. But the 4th one is the most important for, you know, potentially getting like a macro pivot, or at least a major pivot in this case. Of course, we did get the 100 percentile reads right on over here on the actual major lows at about 30,000 bucks, very similar to what you saw in coronavirus dumb times over here, getting 100 percentile right there. Then we wanted to see the BBWP trend below the moving average, so that the moving average gets a negative slope. That's point number 2 and 3. And then we want to see the BBWP get pretty much as low as possible. Right now, we're right around 22, 23 percentile, as you can see. I want to see this get ideally like in the single digits, perhaps even, you know, one percentile or 0, as we did see, well, pretty much in the same area over here. Again, this was your coronavirus dumb times. It took about, sorry, this was no, wait, hold on, that's not right. Well, that's actually also a very much relevant dump. In fact, we could go over that in a second here too. You'll notice a lot of similarities between these. But here's a coronavirus dump one right here, right? You do see that it gets 100 percentile on the actual dump itself, and then it trends all the way down until we get to about 0. That's really when Bitcoin does, you know, prove itself on the macro scale and start to really accelerate, really accelerate to the upside over time. And again, it did get to about 0 percentile before that happened. And if we go back to 2018 as well, another, you know, somewhat reasonably similar era here too, we do see that the BBWP hits 100 percentile on that first move to the downside, and then we trend all the way down. This one does not get as low as the coronavirus dump time, but it does get down to about 3 percentile, 4 percentile right here. Pretty damn, you know, compelling nonetheless. Anywhere in single digits is good enough for me, to be fair. And that was at the point when Bitcoin actually did start to really confirm its higher lows, started to confirm that this was an accumulation phase with, you know, essentially an ascending triangle right here, if you want to look at it like that. And then the next explosion happens, and 4,000 to 14,000 pretty much occurs over the next 3-4 months. So what we're looking for right here, and what you'll notice on both of those 2 iterations, this one right here and this one right here, is that it really took about, let's just actually measure this out, March to July. So I don't know my months here. March, okay, so April, May, June, July. So about 4 months. Okay, very interesting. What about this one over here? This one occurs late November, gets resolved in basically early March. That's about 4 months. So are we comparable to what that is over here? No, well, in general it is comparable, yes, but as far as the time transpired, no, not at all. Again, we're still in like the first month of this consolidation right here. I think next week will mark officially like month number 1 essentially. So we have a lot of time. You know, if Bitcoin is going to pull itself up by its bootstraps here, it very likely has a lot of time to go. And again, there's no talks in my mind of a MAC reversal. Again, as long as those 3 conditions at very fucking least are met. Are there others? Yeah, absolutely. But I do want to keep this video relatable, and we're already 32 minutes into it. I do want to check out a couple of altcoins here too, just to see. And also, I do want to give another sort of well-rounded analysis as to why I do think you give Bitcoin the benefit of the doubt here as well. We do see strong correlations between traditional markets and, of course, well, basically everything in the world, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies included. And what did we see as far as SPY closure on Friday? Close on new all-time highs, or at least I believe so. Hold on. 42.25 versus 42.28. Yep, close on new all-time highs, and I'd be looking for this one to continue to make new all-time highs into this next coming week. We technically have a bit of an ascending triangle reaccumulation right here too. Something like this is what I'd be looking towards. Not super obvious, but overall completely fine. And what do you know, like 41 all the way to 42. It's probably heads up somewhere just north of 4,300 overall. And guess what? That's where our next 4 spot extension is kind of hovering around between there and the 4 spot 236, which is what I postulated this market would kind of top out about half a year ago. So let's see if that one actually comes true. Same thing with NASDAQ futures over here, albeit not as strong. And this one is a little bit more correlated with Bitcoin, seen as it is kind of considered a tech. Yes, there are financials covered in this as well, but if you look at XLK versus XLF, XLK certainly has stronger correlations to Bitcoin. This one not as strong though. I would be looking for another run somewhere around 14,000 bucks, and probably does get lifted up to new all-time highs as well. I mean, this is fine right here for, for all that it's worth right now. Can't hit an uptrend as long as this one's above about 13,400 on a weekly. There is no reversal, at least in my opinion, to be spoken about. And Dow Jones features a little bit more in line with SPY. Very, very strong here as well, closing on new all-time highs. Yeah, I'd be looking for this one to continue to make new all-time highs. So that would still kind of help out the Bitcoin BULAs here as well. Anyways, let's go look at some of the other more fringe cryptocurrencies. How about that? I got a few charted out over here as we've been obviously paying attention to Cardano, like the strong ones. And I want to see how the strong ones are acting right now. Cardano, how you doing? Cardano looks like it wants to come down to about 155 and probably bounce there. What does the weekly look like? Okay, if the weekly does close something like this, I would still give it the benefit of the doubt. I do not hate that as it stands. What about the bi-weekly? Bi-weekly is fine like this, especially if the bi-weekly closes today anywhere above 177, I would be bullish for a retest and probably new all-time highs in the next month or two on this asset. That would also look very, very good. We typically see this market trade together. So if you do see Cardano do that, I would look at that as a very, very good signal here. And it is showing some decent signs right now, but a long day left to go, 18 hours left until closure. But if that condition is met, that would make me obviously bullish here. See how the short-term timeframes are doing. I mean, the short-term timeframes look like they're putting in a higher low here. I really do strongly think that short-term, this was a bear trap. I really strongly think that. Again, anywhere above 177, I would be looking for a retest of prior highs over the rest of the month and probably new all-time highs maybe coming into July. Matic, another very strong one. What do we see over here? Okay, coming down to our 200 simple and 200 exponential average, we did look for a move down to about 150. I think it was earlier or like a couple days ago. I think we're getting that right now, or at least we've already got that right now. I'd be looking at this as a bit of a short-term base and probably does try to rally from there. Do we have any sort of divergences here to be spoken about? Nope. Nope, not at all. Looking at the daily, looks like shit. Looks like it wants to come down further to 125. So we'll just ignore this one if you want to be bullish right now. And we do have a daily jewel, how do your sell signal as well. Not fucking good. But looking at the weekly right here, I don't hate anything that looks like this, at least in its current posturing. Obviously, it's going to matter more what happens next week, but assuming that this closes, if this were to close anywhere above 160, that would be an obvious signal to me that we're going to see another try towards all-time highs later this month in June. Looking at the daily right here does not look good. Looking at the short-term timeframes, it actually does look to me like this is a bit of a bear trap, and we do pop back up somewhere around 170, which would obviously salvage the weekly and the bi-weekly by extension, and well, that would be more or less fine to myself as well. Wait, you already looked at Cardano. What about Ethereum? Yeah, or let's actually look at Dogecoin, because this one actually has been, for better or worse, acting well here too. What are we looking at on Dogecoin? I actually do not have a strong opinion on this chart. This chart is just fucking fuck this chart. Fuck this chart. All right, no opinion. How about Link? Link, a little bit of a short-term up, but this one certainly looks weak, definitely weak, which is also not a good sign as well, seeing as this was one of the more strong ones in the past cycle. Yeah, I really don't like that, in fact. Oh my god. Yeah, if the weekly closes something like this below the 21, not good. Not fucking good. Bi-weekly, same thing, below the 10 simple, however. As long as you're below there, I do not like it actually. So Link, a bit of a counterpoint to what we see. And even on the short-term timeframes, this is not looking like a bear trap. This is looking like a trend. This is looking like a trend. But that is just Link. Let's go check out maybe a couple more. Maybe Ethereum, however. How about Ethereum, or maybe Litecoin? Maybe XRP. Actually, I'm curious what XRP is doing. Not too well as well. Not too well as well, man. Holy shit. This one wants to come back down. 79 and a quarter is what I'd be looking towards. Weekly, same issues here too. What about Ethereum? All right, 2685. If Ethereum closes above the 10 simple on the weekly, I don't hate it. I'd probably be giving it another try towards the upside coming into next week, maybe above $3,000. And where's the 10 simple? 2642. Let's look at lower term timeframes right here. Lower term timeframes look a little bit more like a bear trap to me as well. We do have hidden bullish divergence come off that last low. I would be looking for another pop back up somewhere around short term 2785 region. Now, if we can close above 2785, which personally speaking, I think if we even just get back above there, that'd be good enough for me. I would be looking for this one to actually try towards the top side of the range. In fact, Ethereum showing a little bit more short term health. I do like the signal right here. 4-hour TSI is basing around the bullish buy zone. If we see this curl around, which is probably not going to happen on the next tick, but this number will naturally come down right here on the next tick. If that starts to happen, that would look pretty damn good for me, at least for another run towards the 4-hour highs. We also see BBWP is very, very low here as well, so we are looking at a move today. And this was contracting within the context of this one. Well, more or less just sideways here. Actually, it's not really giving us a humongous bias on this price action. So, ultimately speaking, Same sort of range of supply here as well, right? As Bitcoin. 26 to the downside would be the same thing as like 35.5 to the downside versus this level right here to the upside, about 2,800. We'll say just below there. And yes, above 2,800, this actually starts to look decent again. I do think that this one gives another try, to be honest with you. Let's look at the daily and 2-day. Okay, daily's not giving us a whole hell of a lot. It would have been very obvious to see it close above the 21 yesterday. Obviously, a rejection is not going to help out with that. Buy daily is also rather interesting here too. Any sort of a closure above the 21 coming up would be an obvious signal to look for further continuation. That would probably imply that Bitcoin does test around like 41 or 42. Ethereum would be like 33 to 34 region. We do see a bit of a bullish reset on the buy daily TSI, at least for now. It's a topic of conversation, but certainly not confirmed. 3-day, same thing as well, actually, same thing as well. So, we do see conflicting signals around the board here. I do still think I'd give the short term a chance here. I actually would give it the short term a chance for Bitcoin above 37.6 or 37.5. You want to make it easy to remember. I would get bullish for another short term continuation move, essentially to the top side of the range, and that obviously can have implications with continuation. Any sort of a wick higher above this wick high right here, which is 40,900, or a 4-hour closing high above, let's call it basically 40,000 bucks, I think it is. No, it's actually about the same level. It's just a few $100 lower than that. If we go on a daily, we could make that as low as about 39.5, we'll call it. Then yes, I would be looking for that next move into somewhere around like mid to deep $40,000 territory. Very likely a bit of a pullback somewhere around 42 or 43 on the short term, but ultimately would get that move to the upside. The question is, do we get that before or after tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time? Because that does need to fit into the narrative of what we were speaking about on the bi-weekly. That happens before. Bulaw's hopes stay alive, I suppose, at least for another 2 weeks. and if it does not, then it still does imply that we probably do get a rally from this region, but that rally very likely is used as liquidity to sell into. And if you see, especially open, start to shoot up alongside Bitcoin, taking out about 41 and 42,000 bucks, that's going to be a good and obvious signal that the market actually will have the rocket fuel to potentially break 30,000 bucks to the downside. If that does happen, 25,000 and 20,000 bucks are going to be legitimate targets. Potentially low over time too. I mean, that would look very problematic, but at least for right now, I do still think that at least I would give Bitcoin the benefit of the doubt here. Intel proven otherwise. As that is what at least what I'll be doing. Of course, it is a weekend. I'm not gonna be trading this anyways. I'm waiting until tomorrow when CME, or I guess CME opens up later today. That is. But for myself, I typically open up the trading terminal again on Monday. So with all that said, hopefully this was in some way valuable. I know that we were kind of repeating a lot of things that we've spoken about over this past week, but it is quite literally a sideways range here, more or less. And all clickbait aside, these are the times where things should naturally get boring because we had so much exuberant fun on the upside. That it is time to be looking for a cool off period at the very best, in my opinion. Anyways, with that said, take care. I wish you well, and until next time.